In the previous video on Kant's critique of pure reason, we covered the Transcendental Aesthetic, which is the first part of the Transcendental Doctrine of Elements. There, Kant argues that space and time are pure forms of intuition that exist within our faculty of sense. We now move on to the second part, which is called the Transcendental Logic. This part is, in turn, divided into two divisions, the Transcendental Analytic and the Transcendental Dialectic. The Transcendental Analytic is itself separated into two books. In the present video, we shall cover the first of these books, which is called the Analytic of Concepts. Here, Kant shall describe the appropriate use of a priori concepts, which are called the categories, along with other principles of the understanding, as conditions of the possibility of developing a science of metaphysics. He discusses both the origin of the categories as well as the application of the categories to experience. This is a difficult and sometimes repetitive section of the text. Kant makes heavy use of headings, and these headings provide context as to what exactly Kant is trying to convey within each passage. I shall provide all headings on the screen, and this should help you to follow along a little better. We now proceed with a simplified abridgment of the text. Good luck. Introduction. The idea of a transcendental logic. Knowledge comes from two sources, representations, and the faculty for cognizing objects through these representations. Intuition and concepts are the elements of cognition, and can be either pure or empirical. Sensibility presents objects to us, while understanding allows us to think about them. The general use of understanding encompasses the necessary rules of thinking, while the particular use has rules for thinking about specific objects. These faculties cannot swap functions, and cognition arises only from their unification. General logic is thus divided into pure and applied logic. Pure logic is a priori and free from empirical and psychological conditions, while applied logic requires empirical and psychological principles. General logic abstracts from the content of cognition and focuses on the form of thinking, but there is another kind of logic, transcendental logic, which deals with the pure thinking rules of objects. Transcendental logic pertains to the source of our a priori cognitions of objects and is connected to the laws of understanding and reason. The question, what is truth, requires a certain criterion, but since truth involves the content of cognition, a general sign of truth for all cognitions cannot be given. General logic does provide criteria for the form of truth, but it serves solely as a negative standard, and so it cannot provide material truth. General logic, which is also known as analytic logic, has been misused as a tool for asserting or denying ideas, and does not work effectively for philosophy. Transcendental logic elevates understanding and is dependent on objects in intuition. The Transcendental Analytic reveals the elements of pure understanding and the necessary principles of thought for any object, while the Transcendental Dialectic critiques the unrestricted use of pure understanding. Division 1. The Transcendental Analytic. In the Transcendental Analytic, pure concepts, or categories, of understanding, free from empirical and intuitive relations, are meticulously analyzed and organized into a coherent and exhaustive system. The system is self-sufficient, requiring no external additions, and its completeness serves as a touchstone for verifying its correctness. First, we shall explore the Analytic of Concepts, and then we shall explore the Analytic of Principles. Book 1. The Analytic of Concepts. The Analytic of Concepts explores the understanding itself, investigating the potential for a priori concepts. It is the realm of transcendental philosophy, where we trace the categories to their origins in the human understanding, where they wait to be developed and manifested through experience. Chapter 1. On the clue to the discovery of all pure concepts of the understanding. While the collection of concepts from our cognitive faculties, which forms philosophy, lacks systematic unity and reliability, transcendental philosophy pursues the concepts stemming from the understanding. These concepts or categories are interconnected based on certain principles, and this interconnectedness provides a way to determine their rightful place. The understanding is a cognitive faculty that relies on concepts, not intuition, and concepts arise from spontaneous thinking, while intuitions come from receptive impressions. The understanding's primary use of concepts is for judgment, and every judgment involves a concept that encompasses multiple representations directly relating to the object. Through this process, various cognitions unite into one. Therefore, the understanding can be depicted as a faculty for judging, in which the functions of unity in judgments are exhaustively manifested. There are 4 categories of the thinking function of judgment, each with 3 moments. Judgments of quantity pertain to whether a concept is considered as singular, particular, or universal, that is, one, some, or all. Judgments of quality concern the affirmation, negation, or indeterminateness of a concept. The latter is called an infinite judgment. Judgments of relation involve the connection or comparison between concepts. They are categorical when they assert an actual connection, hypothetical when they link two conditional propositions, or disjunctive when they relate multiple alternative propositions. Finally, judgments of modality concern the determination of a concept's possibility. They are called problematic when they are possibly true, assertoric when they are actually true, and apodeictic when they are necessarily true. Transcendental logic employs a priori intuition from the transcendental aesthetic to give content to the categories of understanding through synthesis. This synthesis combines different representations into one cognition, producing pure concepts, which are the categories. The understanding incorporates transcendental content into its representations through the synthetic unity of intuition, resulting in a priori categories that are related to objects. The understanding possesses the original pure concepts of synthesis, which are crucial for comprehending intuitions. These categories are the true ancestral concepts of pure understanding. To achieve my current goal, I will analyze the concepts extensively, producing a comprehensive vocabulary with definitions. The resulting table of categories will prove valuable for outlining and organizing a science based on principles. It shall include all elementary concepts of understanding, presenting them in a specific order. It is divided into mathematical categories for objects of intuition and dynamical categories for their existence, with the latter having unique correlates absent in the former due to the nature of understanding. The categories always consist of 3 classes, where the third category emerges from combining the first 2. This special act of understanding is necessary to create concepts like numbers. Ancient philosophy contains concepts of understanding that should be considered a priori concepts of objects, such as unity, truth, and perfection. Mistakenly, these were taken as properties of things themselves, rather than as logical requirements for every cognition. These logical criteria are essential for connecting different elements of knowledge and forming a coherent understanding. However, while the transcendental table of categories would be incomplete without unity, truth, and perfection, we shall instead use general logical rules to ensure the coherence of our understanding. Chapter 2. On the Deduction of the Pure Concepts of the Understanding. In law, we distinguish between questions of what is lawful and what is factual when establishing legal claims. Concepts like fortune and fate have no clear legal ground from experience or reason for their use. Similarly, pure a priori concepts such as space and time require a transcendental deduction to establish their entitlement, as empirical proofs are insufficient. Furthermore, sensible intuitions, like the concept of cause, cannot rely solely on experience. Rather, an absolutely universal rule is required, and these are different than their empirical products. The conjunction of a synthetic representation and an object requires either an empirical relation, an object that enables representation, or a determinant relation, a representation that enables the object. Empirical relations depend on appearance and sensibility, while determinant relations rely on intuition and a priori concepts, which are essential for the possibility of experience. That is, a priori concepts and categories gain objective validity through their connection to objects of experience. The transcendental deduction of these concepts therefore necessitates recognizing them as vital conditions for the possibility of experience. The categories are therefore concepts of any object in general. A pure a priori concept must relate to possible experience, but contain no empirical content. The categories of the understanding can also conceive of objects not given in any experience, and their objective validity is justified by their ability to envision objects. All cognition and understanding involves a threefold synthesis: apprehension, reproduction in the imagination, and recognition in the concept. To avoid a lengthy explanation of the deduction of categories, I will prepare the reader with the following 4 points. Despite the initial obscurity, the upcoming section will clarify everything. 1. On the synthesis of apprehension in the intuition. All our cognitions are subjected to the formal condition of time, which is essential for ordering, connecting, and relating cognitions. The mind engages in the synthesis of apprehension, distinguishing time in the succession of impressions to represent the manifold within each intuition. This synthesis, which is necessary for the unity of intuition, generates the concepts of space and time a priori. 2. On the synthesis of reproduction in the imagination. The law of reproduction enables our imagination to connect frequently occurring representations. However, this law requires appearances to follow specific rules, so that the imagination can synthesize them. This synthesis is a priori, rooted in a pure transcendental synthesis of the imagination, and which is the foundation for all experience. Both the synthesis of reproduction and apprehension are inseparable and transcendental actions of the mind, carried out by the transcendental faculty of imagination. 3. On the synthesis of recognition in the concept. Consciousness is vital for the reproduction of representations to form a coherent whole. Consciousness unifies the manifold of representations, enabling cognition and the formation of concepts. The unity of consciousness lies in the a priori synthesis of intuitions. The concept of a body, for instance, necessitates the representation of extension, solidity, and shape. Transcendental apperception serves as the ground for the unity of consciousness. It precedes all intuitions and connects all cognitions. Its numerical unity underpins a priori concepts, much like space and time ground the intuitions of sensibility. The unity of consciousness brings together all possible appearances in one experience, connecting them according to laws. These appearances are representations, not things in themselves. The transcendental object is the pure concept that provides reality to our concepts, establishing a relation to an object. This relation relies on the transcendental law that requires the unity of consciousness for all appearances through which objects are given to us. 4. Provisional explanation of the possibility of the categories as a priori cognitions. Perceptions form a unified experience, akin to appearances existing in one space and time. The unity of perceptions constitutes the form of experience, and is achieved through the synthetic unification of appearances. This unification is guided by the categories, which are the fundamental concepts for thinking of objects in general, and are grounded in the relation of sensibility to apperception. For instance, the concept of causality involves a synthesis according to concepts. The fact that appearances adhere to constant laws can be understood through their belonging to self-consciousness, necessitating their numerical identity as a priori knowledge. This identity aligns with a priori conditions, or laws, which connect all appearances in a manner that necessitates empirical affinity. Nature is a sum of appearances, and its unity depends on our transcendental apperception. In the previous section, we discussed 3 subjective sources of cognition: sense, imagination, and apperception. The transcendental principle of unity in representations is essential for all cognition. Pure apperception establishes the synthetic unity of all possible intuitions, but the imagination establishes the synthetic unity of apperception, thus making all cognition and experience possible. Empirical consciousness is connected to transcendental consciousness, where self-awareness is the original apperception. The transcendental synthesis of imagination involves connecting the many, or the manifold, and constitutes the pure form of all cognition. Understanding unites with imagination, yielding pure a priori concepts. The pure understanding serves as a formal and synthetic principle for all experiences, with appearances inevitably linked to it. Perception combines appearances with consciousness, while the active faculty of imagination, apprehension, operates immediately on perceptions. Pure apperception connects with sensible intuition to enable intellectual functioning, and imagination bridges sensibility and understanding to enable empirical cognition. The categories ensure formal unity in the synthesis of imagination, bringing order and regularity to appearances. The understanding is a faculty of rules, and provides the laws for possible experience. While some laws are learned through experience, the highest laws are a priori from the understanding itself. The unity of apperception governs the manifold of representations, and the understanding is its faculty. The pure understanding, through the synthesis of all appearances, makes experience possible. A priori concepts are only relevant when we deal solely with appearances, not things in themselves. The categories of understanding are necessary a priori in relation to experience, as our cognition. The deduction of the categories is built upon this ground. We now move on to the updated Section 2 from the second edition of the text. The synthesis of understanding precedes all a priori concepts, and the possibility of understanding contains the ground for the unity of different concepts in judgments. Self-consciousness accompanies all representations, making them possible. Pure apperception is a spontaneous act that produces the representation I think. All representations in intuition belong to self-consciousness, and this facilitates the synthetic unity of apperception, the ground for identity and all thinking. The principle of the necessary unity of apperception states that a synthesis in intuition is crucial for self-consciousness. The I alone doesn't provide the many, it requires intuition and consciousness, Hence, I am conscious of the identical self through the necessary synthesis, which is the synthetic unity of apperception under which all representations stand. The Transcendental Aesthetic states that all sensations are under the formal conditions of space and time. The original synthetic unity of apperception enables the combination of these intuitions in one consciousness, which is necessary for their objective validity. This principle is the foundation of all cognition and applies to human understanding alone. The transcendental unity of apperception unites given intuitions in an objective concept of the object. It differs from the subjective unity of consciousness, which is contingent and applies to appearances. The pure form of intuition is united by the necessary relation of the many to self-consciousness through the synthesis of the understanding. The logician's view of a judgment as a relation between concepts is incomplete, for it is applicable only to categorical judgments. Instead, a judgment unifies given cognitions under objective apperception. The copula in a judgment signifies the relation of representations to the original unity of apperception. This principle of transcendental unity grounds the objective validity of all representations. The unity of self-consciousness is achieved through the synthesis of the understanding in accordance with the categories of intuition. The deduction of the categories of the understanding abstracts from the given intuitions and focuses on the unity provided by the understanding. The categories serve as the rules for thinking, not intuition. Knowledge of an object requires both a pure concept, or category, and an intuition, or perception. Intuitions can be either pure, as in space and time, or empirical, as in sensation. Pure intuitions allow a priori knowledge of an object's form, but not its existence. The categories are useful only when applied to empirical intuition, as they allow us to understand the possible objects of experience. The categories of understanding apply only to objects of the senses, and they are empty without empirical intuition. The understanding's categories relate to objects of intuition in general, and are synthesized by the unity of apperception, enabling a priori cognition. This provides the categories with objective reality. While I am conscious of myself as a thinking entity, true self-cognition requires both thinking and intuition. My existence depends on inner sense and temporal relations, which depend on the synthesis of the manifold. The metaphysical deduction establishes that a priori categories stem from universal logical functions of thinking, while the transcendental deduction demonstrates their possibility as a priori cognitions of objects. The categories prescribe laws for appearances in nature, thus enabling perception. The synthesis of apprehension relies on a priori representations of space and time, which are governed by the categories. The unity of perception arises from space and outer intuition in accordance with the category of quantity, while the category of cause determines the relation of events in time. Our cognition of objects relies on categories and the intuitions that match them. While our intuitions are empirical, a priori elements of cognition can be found in the categories. The goal is to present the categories of understanding as principles for the possibility of experience, determining appearances in space and time, which are the original forms of sensibility. The principle of the original synthetic unity of apperception relates to space and time, serving as the form of understanding. And that brings us to the end of the Analytic of Concepts. Next time we shall explore the Analytic of Principles, in which Kant sets out arguments for the relation of the categories to the principles of metaphysics. If you find these videos useful, please consider supporting the survival of this channel. You can find out how to do so in the video description. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.